This is John Benko, EVP of Administrative Services with ADL Final Mile, and you're watching Last to First.
From an M&A standpoint, bringing back to ADL, I said I want to come back to this. So when you're merging two organizations together that have, I think both organizations were 25, 30 years old, easy at the time. A lot of history, culture, could be different operating systems, probably different verticals. Like, where do you start the conversation? Because you guys bought both pretty much the same time. So what was the plan to figure out how we merge these together?
So, very good question, and would seem to be straightforward, but lots behind that.
Sure.
And so I think the first order of business always is get a good baseline, figure out where are you right now? What is the culture? Cultures, plural. Who are the people? Are there any, front burner issues that need to be handled right now because of risk mitigation? Just try and establish where you're starting from. And then who's on the team? What source of talent do you have? Is everybody sitting in the right seat? For Randy and I, it was really difficult because, as you say, both of these are very seasoned, organizations been around for a long time. So we don't know where any of the bodies are buried. We don't, all of that has to be discovered. And so that takes some time. And, our commitment was do no harm. Just make sure that through that understanding process that we don't lose a step. And so we did that. We certainly, through that diligence process with the private equity folks, most folks that haven't gone through it don't understand how labor intensive it is and how emotionally draining it can be because most small businesses don't have an accounting team and they don't have, somebody can press a button and produce what anybody going through diligence is going to want to look at. And so navigating that can be a real challenge. And then the mindset, I'll just speak for myself, it was different. When you're kind of the last shot caller, if something didn't go my way, I had levers to pull, and I did, and that's probably not. I know it's not a good thing. So there are more parameters and boundaries and guardrails, if you will, and there has to be, because you're going to scale something from one size to something much larger, and so you getting comfortable with that and staying productive at the same time, it takes a effort on everybody's part. The other aspect of it that I didn't fully appreciate is, Monty did know and continues to know everything at a, granular level. Tom the same way, and trying to be a productive member of the senior leadership team was really took some time to understand, well, what's on their plate, what's even available to pull off of them, because the reality, what Tom would admit, what Monty would admit, is that both of them had way too much on their plate, and so even if we stood still, let alone scale, it would have been very problematic. And so in my case, what we determined was, well, even though it wasn't my favorite thing to do, I've dealt with lawyers because I unfortunately got sued often enough. I dealt with real estate, and so we got 66 locations now. Somebody's got to manage that. From a safety and compliance standpoint, somebody needed to handle that, and it wasn't that either company didn't have protocols in place, but they were different, and in some instances they were scant of where we wanted them to be. And so I took on that. The assets, when we first put the two companies together, everybody wanted an outsource model, 100%. And some of the business that we had that we found ourselves with required employees, required assets, and that was a out of the box, got to happen as soon as possible transition. And so I took that on and helped dilute, call it 140 vehicles down to, we'll call it 15 today. And that's even with the recent Henry acquisition.
Yeah.
But all of that is, necessary, and I could pull it off of Tom's plate. I could pull it off of Monty's plate, and help in that regard in a meaningful way. Whereas, if they were, either one of them would have plugged me in operationally or, into a day-to-day role, oh my gosh, the learning curve would have been impossible for anybody. Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now, and hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, no, it did. And I want to also have you touch on when you were when the hypothesis of creating what ended up becoming ADL Final Mile. Was it strategically done to find certain operators that had certain verticals that aligned? And then just speaking to today, kind of what all those verticals you guys focus on, and maybe talk a little about each one and how they do kind of interact with each other.
Sure. So out of the box, Randy and I distilled everything we could possibly attach ourselves to from a vertical standpoint. Do we want trucking? Do we want home delivery? Do we want small package? And really we landed on 3 core verticals that we felt like were recession-proof. And so one of them was aftermarket distribution of automotive parts, and i.e. ADL, and pharmaceuticals, so wholesale pharma distribution. So people are going to continue to get ill. They're going to go to the doctor. When you go to the doctor, what do? They prescribe something for you. Aging population, it doesn't stop. Whether the economy is in good shape or bad shape, you still have to have your diabetes.
Need your meds.
Yeah. And the third would be medical. And so we discovered that they are recession-proof. They are not pandemic-proof. And so we obviously deal in other verticals than those 3, but those are the 3 that we're trying to gravitate towards for those reasons. And then in between, we've got a litany. We do e-commerce. We do wine deliveries. We do all sorts of things in the final mile delivery space that we can make money at. That makes sense to complement what we're already doing in those core verticals.